What happens when you lose someone that you love very much? All of a sudden your life can be completely turned around. Is there any hope? Is there anyone that can speak to you of love and hope? Stay tuned. Hello, my name is Father Mike Manning. God bless you. Thank you very much for tuning in. I have got a very exciting program for you, a program that I believe is going to touch not only you, but touch some of the inner feelings of you, of our deep concern about people in our life that are really hurting. And I'm talking about people that have lost someone that they loved. I'm talking about people who have lost their job, who have even lost their homes. I'm talking about people also who are having to live on the streets. Is there any hope? Is there anyone that can reach out and perhaps raise these people up with a new vision, with a new strength? Well, I've got a special lady that has dedicated her life to doing that. Victoria, God bless you. Thanks very much for coming and being with us. We had a great, I always enjoy this chance of sitting down and talking with people. First, we can talk about your great ministry. Tell me a little bit about your life, if you would, Victoria. Your relationship with Christ, was it something that started very early in your life, or was there tell me about you and Christ.
Well, I've had kind of a unique childhood, and as we mentioned before, my father was on the faculty of the University of Notre Dame.
Whoa, hello.
And so growing up in the Notre Dame family and growing up in the Notre Dame environment is a little different faith environment than I think a lot of people experience when they go from a community going to church.
Yes.
And so while we did that, certainly I was raised Catholic, and so going to Mass on a weekly basis was certainly an important part of our life. But the Notre Dame environment, the intense faith and awareness that God is with you, Christ is with you all the time, is a very unique kind of way to be raised. And so our relationship with priests was not just the priest on Sunday or the pastor, but my father's colleagues were priests, and priests were in our home all the time. And as a young child, we grew up not being able to respect, but also fit into our schedule Father's morning prayers when the priest came to visit or stayed with us in our summer home in Michigan. Evening prayers, needing to leave Father alone because he's out on the porch saying prayers. So faith was not something you did on Sundays, and religion wasn't just something that you did occasionally. In our family and in our environment, faith was something that you lived all the time.
Wow, well, that's a marvelous milieu, isn't it?
So it's a little different experience, I think, than most people.
Yes, I can hear that.
Most people had in an environment like that, a Catholic educational environment and faith environment. You kind of live and breathe your religion, you believe your faith all the time. One
of the big struggles, though, that we face in life is that we can be churchgoers, whether we're Catholic, we're Presbyterian, or whether we're Jewish, and we can kind of say, yes, I've got this. But what about the personal relationship with Christ? There comes a moment in our life when all of a sudden the external and things that we do in a family situation or a parish situation or a university situation as you're doing, it has to kind of seep down, and it has to be that face-to-face encounter with Christ. Could you speak to me about that?
Sure.
As a kind of the deeper level of what was really, really a fortuitous experience for you.
And I think this is, I think everyone has this common experience. We do what our family does when we're young.
Sure.
And we participate, and we believe what we're taught.
Sure.
and that's a normal thing. And I think for everyone, including for myself, there comes a point where you have to take what you're taught and you make it your own.
Correct.
And so for me, and I think that environment that I was raised in is kind of an intense faith environment. There was a time when I pulled back from it and said, I don't know, you know, I need to find my own path. I can't just accept everything that I grew up with and everything that I was taught. And so,
and that's not a bad thing, is it?
No, I don't think it's. I think it's
I think
actually.
that's part of the process of making sure that our faith is real.
It is. I think, and making it our own personal faith,
Correct.
as opposed to something we're taught to do or expected to do as children with our parents or children with our faith environment. So, so as many people do, I did that. I went through a period where I wasn't as involved in the church, and I was really looking for what was my personal faith, what was my personal relationship with Christ, what was my personal understanding of God, and went through that for quite a few years, even into my marriage. Even
like what age were you when you kind of made this decision?
Oh, I think I was a teenager, which is perfectly normal.
Sure, yes.
But for me, it went into my adulthood. And even though my husband and I were married at Notre Dame, even though my husband was a graduate of Notre Dame, so he also knew that that faith environment. Together, we went out into the world, kind of, leaving Notre Dame and leaving what that was like, particularly at the time that we went to school, which was at the time of Vatican II and some of the changes in the church, and very personal changes and very strong and rich worship at the university, and we went out into the world, and we didn't find that in the same context that we were used to it. So it took us a while to regroup, and I don't think we ever lost our faith. I think we both, as a couple, had a very strong faith and a very strong relationship with God and a relationship with Jesus, but finding a way, place to worship was more of a challenge. The community
with whom you could be nourished.
Exactly,
and grow.
And share. And that took us a while, until after we had our children, actually. And it wasn't until our children were becoming a little older and started asking questions, and we started teaching them what we knew. And then we thought maybe they needed more than our homegrown version of Catholicism. And so we started going back into a faith community and back to the church. So, so it was an interesting journey from that respect. But then the significant thing for me, the very significant thing for me, was my husband's death. And my children were still they were college age, so they weren't quite really young, but they were young enough that they were still home.
How long had you been married?
We've been married 25 years.
Whoa! And 25 years, and then all of a sudden death.
Yes, and so he was still a young man.
Yes.
And I was a young woman,
of course.
expecting that, and not expecting it. And so that certainly put a challenge on my faith.
So tell me a little bit about that. How did you reconcile the terror of death and the loss of death with your relationship with God?
It was a very, very challenging journey. Everything that I believed, everything that I had been taught was really rocked. And I really went looking for answers.
Now, you had started back into the church, and you had that community, but then this comes in.
And I went to our church looking for support, looking for comfort, looking for answers. And there wasn't really any organized way for our church to provide that to me. And so I went looking elsewhere for it. But first I went to our church.
Sure.
Because certainly, and our funeral, his funeral was at our local church, and so I went there looking for not only the funeral plans and support, but then for the pain that I was experiencing, and the pain my children were experiencing, and looking for someone to help us understand this, and looking for looking for answers to it, and some kind of solution to that pain, that intense pain. And in fact, at some point in that searching, I came and spoke with you. And that helped me, because I was really rocky. I wasn't Sure,
Well,
there was a point of, do I trust God in this?
Yes.
You know, how could he do this? What do I do now? You know, what? And so really a pulling back from God, a pulling back from Jesus and saying, you know, I didn't sign on for this.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
this hurts too much. And then gradually, as I was able to find people who could reach out to me and find ways to share with me their own pain and their process, I was able to come back and strengthen my relationship with God, my relationship with Jesus.
We're gonna take a break. I have a message that I want to share about the ministry, but I want to come back and then I want to find out. I think rather than just you being healed in many beautiful ways by people, you've now kind of taken on yourself the challenge of making sure that if someone is hurting in the church, they can have a place to come.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing some really beautiful helping and healing of lives. Stay tuned. We're going to come back and we're going to hear about some real practical ways of reaching out and overcoming these insurmountable obstacles, like even the death of someone we love. Please stay tuned. I am very excited to tell you about a book that I've just written. It's a book for children, and it's a Christmas book. And it's called The Cow, the Wolf, and Lupe. I know that if you were able to get this book and to go through it and perhaps sit down with a little child and read it, that the wonders of Christmas are going to just fill their heart and fill your heart too with many blessings. Now, what's this story all about? Let me just give you the general outline without perhaps bringing in some of the strong conclusions that are going to happen. It's the story of the little girl who was the daughter of the innkeepers in Bethlehem. She gives her insight into just what happened. Then we move on to the cow in the manger. You hadn't thought about that, but the cow, she tells us exactly what happened on that very precious night of the Nativity. But then, well, I guess this is really my favorite one. It's the wolf who's out in the middle of the field stalking the lambs, thinking about lamb chops, wanting to get lamb chops, when all of a sudden the angels come and the singing comes, the shepherds run away, and in a marvelous, marvelous, touching experience, the little girl, the cow, and the wolf all come together. Now, this book is going to cost $8 plus shipping and handling, and if you'd like to have the video of the program, it's another $2. Now please, get in touch, write us, and remember, you can call that telephone number right at the bottom of your screen. Make sure that you give this special gift to those little children that you love so very much. God bless you. We're talking with Victoria, who's giving us some insight into her own life and the great loss that she experienced with the death of her husband, and how this has not only rocked her faith, but it also has opened up perhaps a channel of enabling you to be able to help other people that are hurting like you've hurt. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, were you able to find solace with this comfort that you received from your friends in the parish?
I was able to find comfort and solace from friends in the parish and some other sources, and that brought me back to my relationship with God. Okay. And it caused me to search more for a more intense relationship, a deeper relationship with God and through Jesus. And I think this is normal for anyone who goes through that kind of major life change. Yes. Because being widowed is a major life change. But there are other losses that are also become major life changes. And I think one of the things that for me, and I think what I found in my work for most people, is we have to then figure out, what are we going to do with our life now? Because everything's changed. Everything we anticipated was going to happen.
Brand new road.
Right. Our life plan is different. And so for me it was, what is God calling me to do now? how do I take this pain, how do I take this experience and use it in a way that he's asking me, he's calling me to use that, to take what I've learned and what I've experienced, and how do I serve others in that process.
Let me just jump into one thing. A person who's been viewing the show, last week I got him on the phone. He had just lost his wife, and his whole life he can't get out of bed.
Sure.
You know, he can't get out of bed. There's no meaning. You know,
no reason to.
He doesn't want to eat. You know, nothing going on. I tried to speak to him of hope, but what's interesting about what you're saying is we have to face the fact that this might go on for a certain amount of time. These moments of almost despair, if you will. They can be part of this whole process, if you will, of coming to the fullness of where we are. And I tried to say that to him, kind of in line with what you've just said, that just might happen, you know, that everything seems lost. There isn't any hope for where you can go. But one of the greatest ways of perhaps coming out of it is looking to see what you can do to serve other people. Are you with me on this?
Absolutely.
Just simply, it's a simple formula. But getting out of myself, and even though there's an empty hole in my soul, trying as best I can to say, well, how can I help this person that's lost not only their husband, their wife, their family, their job, their you know, whatever it is.
And there's parts of the steps to that process, and so there is a part at the very beginning where you have to deal with your own pain, and it is terrible, and you don't want to get out of bed, and you don't want to eat. And that's one of the things in our agency, in our programs, we train professionals to work with those who are experiencing different kinds of losses. And so one of the things we help the professionals understand is that people have that time where they have to be introspective, where they have to care for themselves. And so we say some very practical things about, even though you don't feel like it, it's important to get up every single morning and get dressed. It's important to make sure that you're eating 2 or 3 times a day and nutritious things. It's important that you get some kind of exercise.
The friend that I spoke with on the phone, he says, I've gone for 2 weeks. He says, I haven't taken a bath.
Yeah, see.
There's no respect for his body, or
right.
You know.
And part of that, coming back to our faith, is that God has taught us we need to care for ourselves and care for others. And so that's our first step in helping people to care for themselves, to take care of themselves first, and then if they have family, particularly if they have children, as I did, to care for those children. And oftentimes that's a blessing, because they will care for them, you know, as you said, care for others, and that motivates you to care for yourself. When you have young children,
it's crazy, isn't it?
You have to
you
care
give
for
of
them.
yourself, and all of a sudden you're giving to yourself.
Right,
in a crazy way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's harder for people who are alone, who don't have someone to care for, because that gets them moving forward. But so our agency's goals is to provide education for professionals who work with people who have experienced a loss, and then to provide information for the general public through our website.
Excellent.
So that we try to offer support in both ways, because we do understand, and we understand the pain.
Tell me some of the losses that you've been doing this for many years, and you have an MA in counseling, and so you've been doing that for 35 years. And you started when you were 12, I understand.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. And tell me just a few, so that the people at home might be able to relate to this. What are some of the losses that you deal with that maybe are more significant? We talked of the loss of your husband, the loss of someone we love, and boom, the change that happens. What other losses do we experience?
Well, we use a very broad definition for loss, because very commonly, if you hear a bereavement or a grief support, it really is focused around death. But we really understand that there's a much broader scope of losses, and so we say that a loss is a significant separation from a significant person, place, item, or event. And
Say that again.
A separation from a significant person, place, item, or event.
Okay. So a person we know,
Right.
and that could be a divorce?
It could be a divorce. It could be children going off to college. It could be deployment. It could be...
Ooh, deployment. Here we go. Yes.
It can be job, traveling on your job. There's
Yeah, yeah.
lots of different... It can be immigration, moving from one country to another,
yes.
leaving family members in another country. So separation from a person can be lots and lots of different things.
What's the next one?
Person, place, when you leave home, when you have to move, your job transfers you, and there's just a lot of ways that we leave places.
Ooh, we don't want to do that, do we? Because we make our nest.
Right.
We make our nest.
We
and
keep
boy,
our roots.
Yeah.
Our church, having to leave your church because you've moved, and even the move may be good. It may be a promotion. It may be a change, and yet there's the loss of leaving your church community, the people that you've made a contact with, the people that you worship with.
Yeah. Okay,
So
person, place,
item,
loss
of items, loss of possessions, loss of...
Ooh, and that's happening now. Losing my house.
Sure, losing your house.
Losing my house, having to hawk a whole bunch of stuff
in order to pay the bills.
To pay some of the bills.
Right. Fires out here in California.
Fires,
we have fires when you're...
Earthquakes, tornadoes.
Sure.
Tsunamis. It's all
downsizing for as we age and we need to leave the home we raised our children in and move into something smaller, and having to downsize and give away items that we no longer have room for.
Wow.
So those items.
Okay. Person, place,
item,
item.
An event.
Ooh. What does
Holidays. Not being able to home for a holiday or a birthday, a special anniversary, a special occasion of any kind that's significant to you or to your family. Not being able to go to church sometimes. People who are aging or ill, and they can't go and worship with their community. That's a loss.
So Victoria, what do you're mainly working then with the professional people to try to help them with where they're coming from, and you do have a web page, and we're going to connect that through our web page.
Okay.
We can't give a direct deal to that, but people can move through our web page to understand that.
Okay. Yeah, we
can get a chance to understand a little bit more, and perhaps reach out to you in some of the pain and suffering that's going through.
That's we have several programs. Our board of directors is a very dynamic group of people who very understand the issue of loss, have experienced it personally themselves, and therefore are committed to the agency's mission. We have several programs. We have a program where we work in churches and faith organizations to help them develop a support system for the people that they serve with.
So a team will come into a church that doesn't have, like you said, you came to your church and they really didn't have the organization.
Right.
You can facilitate that to open up the doors to say, these are the steps you need to take
We
in
do
order
a
to
training.
make sure.
We do trainings for any faith organization.
What's the name of the organization?
We're called the Stephan Center.
The Stephan Center. Okay.
And so we have that. We also have a program for professionals, social workers, counselors, educators, in order to teach them the type of losses that the people they serve or teach may be experiencing, children in classrooms, and how that impacts their ability to learn, and all ages, and families and individuals. And then we have a program geared more for working with fathers and relationship to their families.
Ooh, and we need that today, don't we?
So fathers who are deployed, fathers who are incarcerated, fathers in divorce situations, and how important it is for fathers to stay connected with their children, even if they're not living in the home with them. And then we have our website, and the website has just a tremendous amount of information, articles, and resources for anyone.
Victoria, this sounds really great, and we're going to do this, but what I want to do now is I want to bring in some of the people who have been calling in, who have been emailing, telephoning, that are experiencing losses and struggles. And let's pray for them. So I want you to stay tuned, and we're going to be back in just a moment. But I want to pray for you, and I want to pray for all the people that have reached out to us. Let's do that. Please stay tuned. I am very excited to tell you about a book that I've just written. It's a book for children, and it's a Christmas book. and it's called The Cow, the Wolf, and Lupe. It's the story of the little girl who was the daughter of the innkeepers in Bethlehem. The cow in the manger. You haven't thought about that. But the cow, she tells us exactly what happened. When all of a sudden the angels come and the singing comes, the shepherds run away. This book is going to cost $8 plus shipping and handling. And if you'd like to have the video of the program, it's another $2. Now please, get in touch, write us, and remember, you can call that telephone number right at the bottom of your screen. Make sure that you give this special gift to those little children that you love so very much. God bless you. Victoria, thank you very much for being a person who's taken your faith in Jesus and you've allowed it to be something to reach out and help people in a good way.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here.
Well, it's good. I think you've shared some real insights that I've related to, and I'm sure the people at home are also going to be relating to. When we talk about loss, though, we're bombarded here at the ministry with people who reach out. We want to be a channel of blessing to people in their lives. You know.
I totally understand.
Listen to some of these here. This just came in today. Maria is asking for her brother-in-law, Ambrose, who passed away last night. He overdosed. You know, to pray for that. Let me get here, excuse me. Here's Penny from Florida. She has cancer. She has cancer. She's praying for peace and she's praying for healing. Arthur from Michigan. No work. You know, the loss of job. You know, so we're all this loss thing. Kina from California just lost her son.
Oh, how difficult.
Yeah, he died after being disabled for 30 years. She wants to find peace because, wow, when someone is disabled like that and there's the giving of your life to support and care, and then that person goes.
Sure. It's a double loss.
A double loss, yeah. Here's an email that came in from George. It's been the worst year of my life, you know. People have fought with him, little money, school is difficult. Let's pray. Would you reach out your hand on this and let's just pray over these people. Lord, we come to you in the midst of many losses that we're experiencing, trusting that you're a God who is not just sitting up on a mountain or off in the sky. Touch our hearts, touch our souls, but also, Lord, touch people like Victoria. Touch people who especially are suffering right now, to find the healing for their suffering in their reaching out and caring for the people around them that are hurting, that have lost. And may Jesus' love for you always make you smile.